I was honestly, as we're starting the recording, I almost put my name in the chat as Boon Coon because I started playing Persona 4 for the first time, and it's obviously a Japanese RPG. So whatever name you give your character, you're whatever that is, Coon to some of the people, and so I'm Boon Coon to all the characters in there. I thought that was pretty funny. Completely forgot to do it in here though. Anyway, welcome to the Screen Server Podcast this week, everybody.
Wait, I have a question.
Me. Yeah, please.
What's the significance of Coon in the game? Like, what's that moniker mean?
I think it's in Japanese culture, Coon is somebody that you're close with, like a close friend. Like that's not quite in a romantic way, but like just a close friend.
Okay.
In a similar way to like Chan, I think is somebody that you're. It's almost like a like more of a respect thing, like an older sibling or like a person that you respect or something. I think you refer to them as Chan.
Yeah, I've heard versions of that. Yeah.
I
think like
Sean Boon Coon. But we're back this week, folks, for another episode of Screen Sermon Podcast. And this week, the Boon, or Boon Coon, is with you here with Inky as usual. Welcome back, Inky.
Hey, thank you for having me back. Glad to be one of the Boon Coons, I guess, if I can dub myself as such.
One of the Boon Coons. And then, of course, we welcome back Iguana Lover 23.
Still here, still looking forward to Leo.
You're still one of... Well, you know what? No, it's a lie. It's still probably a lot of people are excited for that film. So this week we're actually... And, I think the longer that the show goes on, the more that it just kind of baffles me. But we're kicking off our second arc, which you actually brought up last week. Yeah, I can't call you Iguana Lover 23 every time I want to say your name. So
lasted all of 2.5 minutes. All right.
yeah, I knew it wasn't going to go. So last week you actually brought up that, more or less, would you say this is season 3? And I think that does make sense because when we started this whole conversation about having arcs, and when the Alex Garland arc started, we started referring to episodes as being within season 2. So this, I guess, is our effective season 3 beginning as we start the Sean Baker arc this week. And we're going to kick that off by talking about his 2012 film Starlet. So just wanted to kind of give a little background on him, which honestly, there's not a ton of information out there about Sean Baker, at least not without a lot of digging, which I didn't do. But he's not an incredibly well-known filmmaker from what I'm seeing out there. He's in his early 50s now. He's from New Jersey. He's American. And is something of an indie darling and has kind of stuck around in that indie film picture for the majority of his career, which kicked off, at least directing features in the early to mid 2000s. And I think one thing that can be said about him is that he's kind of heralded as being somebody who kind of brought a lot of attention to filming techniques or like filming in different ways that maybe weren't more mainstream, like filming entire movies on an iPhone, for example. He kind of brought those kind of techniques or those kind of options and doing films on a micro budget and things like that. He's kind of a director that has prominently been doing that for a good portion of his career from what I've read. Inky, you're the one that introduced me to Sean Baker when we were chatting about him in the review of another film. And that's kind of where the idea was born to do a Sean Baker arc. Do you know anything more about kind of his beginnings or kind of where he came from that you can touch on?
Well, I know he studied at NYU, the Tisch School of the Arts, studied film there. He kind of worked like a lot of young filmmakers or aspiring filmmakers do, working in everything from like commercials, a lot of indie films, other people's productions. One of his earlier projects actually was the first iteration of Greg the Bunny, which we get a clip of in this movie. And this is the pre-Fox version, the version before Seth Green, I believe, that was on IFC, right, which was specifically parodying indie films from, say, like the late 80s up to like the mid 90s. So things like, Sex, Lies, and Videotapes and whatnot. Pretty niche show. But again, it's IFC before Portlandia. So it's
right.
It's a niche audience. But that's about as much as I know. I know this is his fourth feature, which I didn't realize. I knew he had a couple of earlier ones. I was first introduced to him with the film that he made after this, Tangerine. Mutual buddy of ours, I don't think he had even seen it yet. He had read something about it or maybe seen the trailer, and he's like, I think you would love this. You should go check it out. And based on that recommendation, I went out and found it on a streaming service because it had already long passed its kind of short theatrical run. And just fell in love real quick. Like first 15 minutes, I was like, I'm in. The characters, the energy, the sense of place, like everything's getting me about this. But as far as background, honestly, I didn't even realize he was in his early 50s. There's something about him, like I was watching a few interviews with him earlier, and granted, these are interviews from probably around 6 or 7 years ago, but he felt like somebody contemporary to our age. Yeah. Another funny thing, though, in watching him, because I hadn't seen a whole lot of video of him, he really looks like the mirror version of Marcus Parks to me. But on the light side of the mirror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's like, this is the Marcus that retained some belief in humanity.
I could see that for sure. And it's something that I got from him. He does have like a youthful kind of energy about him. Like he's kind of a new on the scene guy, even though he's been around for quite a while. Like I said, his first films, I think his first directorial feature was like 2004, I think, or something like that. I think that's when Takeout came out. And so we're going on 20 years ago since he started putting out feature-length film. So and speaking of Tangerine, we will be looking at that during the arc here. We've saved it for December, since it does take place on Christmas Eve. So but yeah, I just, there's not a ton of information about him. He has spent his career in this indie world. He's won some Independent Spirit Awards and things like that, and he's never really branched off into taking on these kind of bigger projects or taking on anything. Not that it's even been offered to him. I mean, I have no clue, but he's kind of stayed at that same level. It seems like he's pretty content to do that, from what I've seen. So yeah, I mean, let's dig into this. So Starlet is a 2012 film that came out. It's a drama. I guess if you want to break it down to brass tacks, it's a story about two women whose lives intersect in San Fernando Valley, California. One of them is a 23-year-old aspiring actress, and one of them is an 85-year-old widow. And they're pretty much the most unlikely pair you can imagine, but something ends up tying them together. And a friendship kind of blooms from there, and this is a big film about characters. I think that it's all about the characters and how they interact. It's also a movie that very much is about the place. It's got a lot to do with California, and specifically that area of California, and just kind of the vibe that you get from that place and time. I don't know. I kind of want to kick it off because I know that Iguana had he kind of left some vague comments in the Screen Sermon chat about he's got some opinions, but he'll leave it at that. So I wanted to kind of give you the floor to kind of kick us off so that we have a branching off point from there.
What I didn't want to tell you up front whether or not I liked it or whatever. My opinion at all. I wanted to save that for it because sometimes I'll give my opinions on films and people will be completely surprised that I either did or didn't like it. Like, I think it's pretty well known that I don't care for Midsummer, and that shocked a lot of people in my circle. And then those same people were extremely surprised that I praised Beau is Afraid so hard. Because they said, well, I don't know how the hell you don't like this, but then you like this.
Right.
So I just let that be a little surprise. I didn't really. I had Starlet and a bunch of other Sean Baker shit on the mega list I used for the pod when I put out suggestions like, "Oh, we could do this, we could do this." But outside, I didn't. I don't think the name even registered. I just had a lot of his filmography on there.
Yeah.
So I went in completely blind. I knew nothing about the guy. The only plot synopsis I read going in was, and I'll read this: an unlikely friendship forms between 21-year-old Jane and the elderly Sadie after Jane discovers a hidden stash of money inside an object at Sadie's yard sale. And that ain't a lot to go off of. But
right.
I put it on Tubi, by the way. So shout out to Tubi.
Yeah.
And I love this film. Like it's this podcast has a way about it of making me watch shit that I've been either putting off for the longest time or stuff that maybe, I want to see it but I don't have a reason to. 9 times out of 10, I think I come away enjoying whatever the hell it is that we're reviewing.
Sure.
As far as I remember, I don't think I've had a bad thing to say about any film that's had its own dedicated episode. I mean, I shit all over Scream 2 and 3, but...
yeah. That was in a larger, concept of a show where we were praising certain parts of that franchise, but not others.
Yeah. Go back and watch the Scream episode, by the way. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Got Jane. Yeah, I think part of that's also self-imposed because I tend to stay off the episodes where I don't like the movie. So I did not want to put myself through watching Midsommar again. Sorry, and
can't blame you.
I don't care for The Crow as much as other people do.
Yeah,
it's fine. I just don't like it as much as other people do. But yeah. Starlet was great. It lowered my expectations a lot going in because the opening shot is credits on a piece of drywall. So I went, oh, we're low budget. So that's either this is going to be an extremely low budget film, or the most pretentious shit that I'll ever see. And it was both, but I liked it. I think that fucking the entire thing was shot like it was a student film. Like the whole thing looked amateurish. I don't know if it was shot on digital or not. I think so. If either of you know, feel free to let me know. But
for the time and the budget, I would almost assume, it was definitely digital.
It sort of didn't feel that way though. It felt very, and I'm going to use this term a lot. It felt genuine, which is not something I use to describe a film very often, because every character felt like a real person. The dialogue all felt natural. The movie looked like amateurish in a positive way, to where I felt like I was just looking at somebody's life, and I didn't feel like I was watching a movie at all. And the actress that played Sadie, which I'm sure it was going to come up one point or another, this is her only acting credit. She's not an actress. She was plucked out of a YMCA or some shit.
Yep.
And she gave a performance that rivals some actors in films. It was phenomenal. I looked her up after watching the film, and I was like, okay, let me see what else she was in. And I went, oh, nothing. This is her only
acting. Johnson.
She went on to do nothing else, but she got a shit ton of awards for this movie.
She passed away about a month after this movie released.
Yeah,
did
only
she?
about a year after they shot it, I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Was she actually like 80-something years old?
I think so.
85 when they shot it.
Yep. And she had always dreamed of being an actress and just never happened for her. And then she happened to get cast in this film. I don't even know how they discovered her, but I know that it was a dream of hers to become an actress when she was younger. Never really happened for her. somehow or another she ends up getting discovered, and they bring her in to do this movie. And she finally got to do a movie, and it was her only one.
Yeah, I think she had been a model up to that point, or like earlier in her life.
Okay.
She had something of a transient life earlier on, and ended up in Los Angeles, and had lived there for a few decades by the time they found her at the YMCA pool.
Wow.
I mean, another thing to lend to, when I say amateurish, I'll just say this up front, that's not a negative thing.
No, yeah, sure.
Another thing lending to that vibe is the fact that I didn't recognize a single person in this cast other than two people. One of them was Asa Akira, a porn star.
One of the three I knew beforehand.
And one of them was James Ranson from Sinister, Black Phone, It Chapter 2.
He was the one I knew. Yeah.
Playing Mikey. And he did such a good job playing this dick of a character that it didn't register that I was watching. Like, again, it didn't feel like I was watching an actor play a character. It felt like I was just watching a person do the shitty, stupid stripper pole thing that they do.
He's the one that stands out. I remember watching the trailer when we were getting ready for this, because this was my first watch of this one as well. From Tangerine, I kind of just went forward with Sean Baker's filmography. Always meant to go back, but didn't until this assignment. But yeah, Ranson was the one that, like, even in just that, Ranson was
That's
the one.
That's a way to describe it.
Yeah. No. Here's the thing.
This assignment I was given.
No. As somebody who is all over the place most of the time, I appreciate that. So,
being a real Boone Chan over there, Boone Coon. Giving me homework.
Quit yucking my yum over here with your assignments. Anyways.
Sorry,
but no,
ahead.
like,
I didn't mean to cut you.
No, Ranson does stick out in that way. I think only because he had done so many notable films after the fact. I think at the time he was probably equally as known as about anybody in here. Honestly, the most knowns might have been like Asa Akira and Miguel Ferreira. Did I get that name right?
I don't even know.
I'm not familiar.
I remember them referring to him as Miguel. I don't remember his last name.
Was he?
Well,
he had a.
I'll find him out later. Yes. He's the French adult film star that that Dree Hemingway character works with at one point. That was one of the
During
three.
that
So
scene.
yeah, that one. Oh, and quick bit of side research. This film was shot on digital. It was using a Sony PMW F3 camera.
For all you tech people out there.
A
I filmed the whole
PSP.
thing on a PSP. And I did all the sound mixing on my Sega Game Gear.
Pushing the limits. We had an Atari Jaguar in the back, just in case.
The little bit of research that I did do on Sean Baker is someone said on one of the fucking articles I was read, and I'm not gonna link it because I don't remember. I was just reading a little bit of background information, but he likes to give a voice to people that aren't spoken for. So apparently, this is not the only film that he made featuring sex workers.
Yeah.
Nope. You'll learn more about that in our part 2. And I was gonna say, if a lot of what you said, and I'm so glad you like this, if you liked a lot of those things, it only gets better. As somebody who's seen the next 3 films, all of those elements are still at play, and he, for my money, only learns to develop and delve into those even to a higher degree. Especially, it's still my favorite. Is still Tangerine. So you'll get another taste of that in that one. Oh, and it was Manuel Ferreira. That was the name. So apologies, Manuel. Like he needs my apology, but
he doesn't need your help.
He just made the list of people we don't need to help.
Yep. Him, Vivica Fox.
I don't remember that one. When was that?
That was episode 1.
The very first.
On the Oscars.
The first controversial take we ever had on something. So yeah, going back to what you said, and I do want to highlight it again, and it's not me pandering, it's serious. I want to make sure to highlight Tubi TV. Like, support Tubi. Anybody that hears me, anybody that listens to our show, watches it on YouTube, support Tubi. Tubi's a great service, and the way that I pointed it out earlier on is there were points of time in my life where financially, I was in the shitter, and I wouldn't have been able to afford X, Y, and Z streaming services, back then. They didn't exist at the time. But I'm just saying, back then, I wouldn't have been able to afford this many streaming services. I didn't have cable, like stuff like that. Tubi, a service like Tubi, would have saved me because it's a free, as long as you have an internet connection and some kind of device that can stream it, it's a completely free service. And their catalog is awesome. And we've used it a number of times on the show to do films that weren't anywhere else to be found, and it's just great. Their catalog is amazing. They've got like HBO shows on there. I saw they had all 4 seasons of Spartacus from HBO on there. Like, I don't know how the hell they get the rights to do these things, but it's there. So Tubi is a great platform. Support it. Download it to your device. It's probably got some stuff on there that you're not going to be able to find on any of your other services. And it's worth checking out. It's worth putting some time into. And Tubi, if you're out there, if you manage to hear us somehow or another, we love to talk about your product. We would love to talk about your product in an official capacity too. So please reach out. So yeah, thank goodness for Tubi, because I couldn't find Starlet really anywhere else. And but yeah, this. I like this film a lot. I think that it's great from a directorial standpoint. I think one of its strongest points is its performances, and then on top of that, I think that Sean Baker's direction has a lot to do with that, because I was watching some interviews, and evidently he allowed these folks to just ad-lib a lot of what happens, or a lot of what's said, and it really kind of was up to the characters or the actors to get into their characters and decide, make decisions about things like, well, Dree wouldn't do that, or Dree wouldn't say that, and kind of allowing them the freedom to make those decisions about the characters they were playing, even though they were written a very specific way by Sean Baker and his writing pal, whose name is going to escape me. I know he works with this guy multiple times over the course of his career, if not on every film, but I can't remember his name.
Christopher Gauche.
That's it. This is also, and I stop me if I'm not making any sense. In my mind, this is 3 different films. It's 3 different kind of stories that get stuck together, and I think that it's composed rather brilliantly, because you have the story of a friendship that kind of is unlikely and comes together in this unexpected way. You have a story about exploitation and kind of what that looks like in the San Fernando Valley area. How, people in this certain period of time, in this certain city, in this certain industry, and how they're exploited, how the people in this neighborhood are exploited, like by an insurance company, for example, which becomes a big setting in the movie. So there's this whole angle about exploitation. And then there's this other section of the film, which is effectively a documentary about the adult film industry. And there's 2 different shooting styles, I feel, when you're talking about the relationship between Dree and Sadie, or like kind of this underlying drama piece about exploitative, actions and things amongst all these people. It's shot very much like a film. And then when you take a look at it through this lens of being a film about the adult film industry, it's much more like a documentary. And it's kind of filmed, with handheld cams and things like that. People are in this film under their real names. That the actors and actresses in the adult film industry go by their real names and things like that. Dree is, and Melissa, what's her stage name? Zana, I think it was. They're the only fictitious porn stars in this movie. And so I thought that was interesting that they have this drama that they film like a film. Like there's very like soft focus on the background. I had noticed that a lot too. Like when Sadie and Dree are having conversations with each other, a lot of the time the stuff that's around them is out of focus, and they are very much like in a box, and it's just you're focusing on them in this little window, and everything around them is very vague, you know, and it's very opaque. You can't quite tell the faces of anybody else, and it's very much just like you're supposed to be zeroing in on these two characters and what they're doing and how they're connecting with each other, and that's what's supposed to matter. And I feel like that also kind of translates into, you know, them kind of getting lost in each other as well, specifically Dree. I mean, the storyline of the film is that she finds 10 grand in rolled up money inside of a thermos that she buys from Sadie's yard sale. And it was, of course, an unexpected thing. Sadie didn't even know the money was in there. And it becomes this thing about, you know, what to do with this money. Do I tell her about it? Do I not? Do I use it? And, you know, there's some guilt associated there that might start their relationship with one another, but then, of course, it grows from there in a very genuine way. So, yeah, I just thought it was interesting that there's these different angles that Sean Baker took with the story and with the shooting style. And just kind of this, like, expose into the adult film industry, kind of underlaying this story about two women connecting with one another. I forget what my original point was.
I was like, good observations though on that visual style. I mean, that's one thing I do love about Baker. He knows how to do a lot with a little. Mm-hmm. I think of his class of indie filmmakers, and indie shouldn't be a genre, but it is, just in terms of terminology. But he definitely has a little bit more of an eye, like, and that's something again that you see progress through his filmography. It's not just how many ways you're shooting from the camera, it's what you're putting in front of it. Like, he really understands mise-en-scene, and he really gets his subjects, as you mentioned as well. And that seems to be his main focus through most of his career, is the people that he's putting in front of it, the characters and what they're going through, where they live. Yeah.
It felt pretty intimate too, with basically just a main cast of four. You had Dree Hemingway. You keep calling her by the actress's first name, and it's throwing me off because I'm like, who the fuck is Dree?
Oh yeah, sorry.
I didn't want to break your flow there. You had a lot of other things going on, but yeah, Dree Hemingway is the actress. Her name is Jane or Tess in the film.
Right. Oh, I keep forgetting about
that. When they were at I'm jumping ahead here, but when they were at the porn convention scene, because she was just called Tess throughout the film as her porn name, there was a little billboard that she was in front of, that she was obscuring, and I was so hoping that her porn name would be Tess Tickles.
Tess Tickles.
Because you had Zana
Valentine.
Generic fucking porn last name.
She was Valentine.
Yeah, there you go.
And Tess was Tess Steele, which is a very, you know.
Yeah, but I could fucking hope for Tess Tickles.
The most wholesome porn name you've ever heard. Tess Tickles.
There's that character. You have Sadie. You have Melissa / Zana, and then Mikey. And the dog, you know, the
slash
dog,
fucking Mikey. That's just his name.
Too. We'll add
slash fucking Mikey.
Because Starlet was played by Sean Baker's dog, Booney.
Yeah, I saw that too. It was his actual dog. That dog did a great job too. For it, like, assuming it's not a performer of any kind. Like, I'm assuming that dog isn't trained. He just filmed his fucking dog.
Is this a professional dog?
Yeah, is this Airbud, or is it just like you brought your fucking dog on set?
One of the ones from one of the backups from The Incredible Journey.
Homeward Bound.
Yeah,
is that what you're talking about?
He's an extra from Beverly Hills, Chihuahua too.
Couldn't get on the first one, but
yeah, he's in the sequel. Nobody saw that one. Fucking original Homeward Bound. That was my jam when I was a kid. To be honest.
Oh god, yeah.
That Milo and Otis. I watched the shit out of those movies.
Yep.
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
We finally made ourselves feel old around Iguana Lover.
No
Mostly
kidding.
you get our references. Milo and Otis broke it.
I know. Alright. The fucking... I'll watch it. There better not be a needs to see. Fucking Josh needs to see Milo and Otis.
I was more thinking Homeward Bound, but yeah,
I
absolutely
know
Milo
that
and
they're
Otis.
fucking sad movies about animals, and I know in one of them there's that fucking one of those internet theories that they're like, oh, did they actually die when they threw them in the river or whatever the fuck? But,
No, if you're talking about Milo and Otis, side journey here, and you horror fans will appreciate this. So a lot of people give Cannibal Holocaust shit for killing a real turtle, and I forget the other animal. More animals were killed making Milo and Otis by a long shot.
no, so
Are
you shitting me?
It was true
No.
that they actually killed the fucking dog cat things.
Yeah, more than one dog and cat apparently died in making Milo and Otis.
No, that kills me.
I know. It broke my heart when I first heard it.
It breaks my heart.
I'm sorry to do that to you. But the fact, I heard this on a show about Cannibal Holocaust, and he said, more animals were killed in Milo and Otis than this movie. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, man.
So you bring out the fucking your set. You have all your shit back there with your production quality assistants, and you got one machine back there that just says the puppy shredder.
It's a minor Turtles villain.
Yeah, it's also the name of a fucking future TMNT villain.
Ugh. Shit, man. I'm not going to be able to watch that movie ever again.
I thought that
I
was
hadn't
an
watched it
urban
since I
legend.
was a kid. I was just looking it up. I haven't had any chance to verify, but the rumor was there was around 20 cats were killed. That sounds pretty high, to be
Jesus.
honest, even with that.
Wait, it's Japanese?
What?
No.
I just
No,
looked
this is
up
English, I think.
The Adventures of Milo and Otis. It says a 1986 Japanese film.
Really?
Japanese?
Is there two? Is this going
I
to be a
don't know.
BBV?
We somehow get to this before House.
The most fucking unexpected VVV ever. The Adventures of
Oh my
Milo
God.
and Otis. It says it's a Japanese film.
So there's just like an American dub of Milo and Otis?
I always knew it as like the English voices.
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice that was there people in it?
No. I
it was
remember
just
there being a
following this
single
dub-
human being in it.
It was following this dog and cat around the woods, and they would just kind
Yeah.
of like add voices and do narration over it. It was like
And there's a
before
fox.
they would
I
even
remember there's a fox.
Yeah, it was before they would even
Yeah.
add like an animated mouth to like dogs and cats and things. That Homeward Bound's the same way, where they're just like, hey, let's just talk over animals. People love animals, right?
Yep.
Directed
That's-
by
yeah.
Manasori Hata. It is Japanese as fuck.
Huh.
Get the fuck out of here. And they killed a bunch of cats. I see now.
Well, okay,
I would watch
hold
it
on,
and I'd
hold
be
on
like,
now. I'm
Alright,
reading now. Two different things. This is apparently very contentious. I said those claims are unfounded and should be considered a myth. Next person feels that the evidence is in the movie. Watch the movie and use your judgment. Ask yourself, how did they get this shot? Did they actually have to put the animal in danger? And the answer is yes. So there's a lot of argument about this.
Oh, so
Old
let's-
Yeller fought a bear. How'd they fucking do that?
Japanese too. Is your life a lie?
Old
Yeah.
Yeller was Japanese.
Yes. Y'all don't know this, but Old Yeller was actually a retelling of like an old Ronin samurai tale.
Right. There was a Kurosawa version where Toshiro Mifune played Old Yeller.
Oh my god, I'd watch the shit out of that.
He should have got the Oscar for that alone. So
Yeah.
How the hell?
I was about to say, now, if I were to watch Milo and Otis now, I would probably pinpoint certain scenes where I'd be like, see, the cat's acting different. Like, and before I would probably say it was an off day, but now I just know it's a different cat.
Well, the thing that people are pointing out on Reddit is that, like, how many of these shots were legit dangerous. Like, there's ones where they're, like, approaching a bear or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, leaving out the fact there are a lot of, like, I mean, it's a sad fact on its own, but a lot of very tame bears.
Yeah.
You know, so
is
like I say,
going to be a fucking needs to see episode. It's starting to sound that way.
It feels like a needs to investigate episode. Like, we need to
fucking
solve
dossier.
this.
We're gonna go fucking interview people and get to the bottom of this. Just interview the fucking Japanese ASPCA.
Hell yeah.
The JSPCA. Whatever the fuck.
Screen Sermon opens the dossier on Milo and Otis. Fucking dig in.
It's not. I just looked it up.
Hey, Amber's on the show.
There's alternate scenes and everything. I've seen them.
Amber's claiming that there are scenes that were shot just for the States.
Did you just call her Amber?
I don't know. I call it. What the fuck difference does it make?
Fucking Screen Sermon name confirmed. Amber is Amber on the show.
That's her dancer name.
Amber Squared.
No, her Screen Sermon name is Tess Tickles.
And we're back. And we're back to Starlet.
I just got the wordplay of that, by the way.
Well,
that's why my earlier comment about it being a very wholesome name, like, Tess Tickles.
well,
I thought it sounded like a clown name or something. Now I got it.
I mean, compared to some, like the other opportunities for porn names, specifically like the males, I feel like their names are always fucking insane. Like fucking Johnny Ramrod.
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought we were both from John's.
It's always Johnny something.
I worked with a dude named Dakota Steele.
Nice.
I didn't know that was his last name until, like, well into working with him, and I was like, man, you could be like a porn star or a wrestler with that name.
We used to do a show in Pennsylvania, and the guy's legit name was Tatum Hammer. Fucking incredible name. So of course he didn't wrestle under that name, which is like, what's wrong with you?
You know what? You don't have room to talk.
He's like, hey man, I got a government job. I'm trying to protect my identity a little bit.
I'm not going to say your last name on the show because that's up for you to decide whether or not you want that there. But you have like the coolest last name for indie wrestling, and you chose something else.
I don't know. I always thought it would be kind of corny.
It's your fucking name.
I'd rather be Boon Coon.
I say, of all of us, you're the only one with a legit, like, wrestler comic book name, first or last.
For all you listeners, don't tell him his name is Brandon Boone.
I like the alliteration. Go with that.
Brandon Boone sounds like a wrestler from the 70s.
It does. Jobber.
Like
enhancement
talent,
for sure.
Guy that worked Jack Briscoe in fucking West Virginia.
Yeah.
Another Ken Raper situation.
I'm taking your segue though to get back to the movie with the testicles. Can we talk about that scene? So there, I'd say it's like 45 minutes or so into the film. You've spent quite a lot of time with Jane, aka Tess, and Sadie and their relationship, and gotten to know, like, Tess's living situation. She's living with another, couple, but they also happen to be in the adult film industry, and the dude also sells weed, or at least he sells drugs in general, because I think he also sells Oxy or something like that. Anyway, you've gotten to know her up to a certain point. Her relationship with Sadie has very much gotten involved. Sadie has kind of started warming up to her and things like that. Because at first she's very guarded and very hesitant about, she assumes that there's something nefarious there, that that Tess wants something from her and things like that. And that there's no reason why this young girl would be nice to me for no reason. Which she's not altogether wrong about, because it did start from, Jane finding this money in the thermos that she bought. But anyway, out of nowhere, we finally kind of get to see Jane go to work, which up to this point we haven't seen. And so she goes and she's on a film set, and you're kind of getting it. You're like, okay, so she works in adult films. Like, you kind of get it. And then she meets with Arash, who is the guy that owns the production company that makes the films, who is another guy who I don't know if we're supposed to think he's a piece of shit because he's the head of a porn company, but I didn't think he was a piece of shit. I thought that he was scummy. He was a little scummy for sure, but he wasn't a piece of shit.
But he's got that dad vibe to him too.
Yeah.
Like the part where you're like, shit. He doesn't just straight up yell at you and call you a piece of shit or something like that. Like, he grounds you, Yes. He says he's doing this for your good too, because he understands more about you than you do, kind of a thing. Yeah. Like, he's damn it.
Yeah. We'll get back to the scene in a second, but Inky, what I think you're getting at is there's a scene in the film where Zana, who is Tessa's best friend and she lives with her, she's got a drug problem and she doesn't get paid, and it turns out it's because she never actually filmed the scene or did the thing that she was supposed to do in order to get paid, and she has no recollection that she didn't do the work. So she storms back into the studio and is throwing an absolute shit fit about not being paid, is demanding payment for work that she didn't even do, and, destroys some property and makes an absolute ass out of herself. And the guy, Arash, ends up going, not completely blackballing her or kicking her out or firing her or whatever, thanks to some of Tess's intervention, but he ends up just saying, I'm basically going to keep you, as Inky said, you're grounded for a month, basically. I'm not going to put you in any films. You can't come to the convention and all this other stuff. Clean your shit up and then come back to work. He's giving her this other opportunity to set it straight and stuff. And so it really just paints him as he's kind of scummy. He makes the comment to Tess at the convention about hey, we do a couple more of these and then we'll fix your tits, because she doesn't have huge porn star boobs or something like that. But so he says scumbaggy
it's
things.
The phrasing in that one. It's not like, hey, we'll get you a boob job. Hey, we'll get you that operation. Yeah. We'll fix your tits. That's verbatim how he says it. Throws it out there next Tuesday we'll get you ready for that certification,
Exactly. And it's never implied, I never got the inkling from it at all that he's sexually involved with any of the actresses or anything like that. It seems very much like he has a family at home. He just happens to own a porn company. He's involved. He's very
business-like about it.
Yes, 100%. He leaves in the middle of a shoot at one point, so it's not like he's gawking at it or anything. He's just I got other shit to take care of. I gotta go.
Well, the way he leaves too, it's just so casual. He's like, "Hey, you're a superstar," and then he gives. I don't know if you guys detect this too, but he gives Manuel Ferreira a less hot kind of goodbye. He really says, "Tess, you're great." I forget the exact words, but he's something like, "Yeah, you're a fucking star," and he goes, "Manuel." See you, man. Love you. And Manuel, mid-fuck, is just oh, thanks, man. He kind of detects it, too. Yep, just me. I'm just the meat. This doesn't take effort or skill.
One thing that surprised the hell out of me is that it was, the real fucking in the movie. I mean, it was
that's what I was going to get to.
It was a body double, but I was watching this with my wife, as you do, and I lean in and I'm like, "That's real. That's legit. That's happening.
That's a dick."
And she goes, "Oh, so you're watching porn for the podcast?"
Fuck yeah.
You're kinda, but I mean...
Tune in to Boone Needs to See E.T. the Extra Testicle porn parody.
Wait, they actually made that?
I don't know. I think so.
Okay. I know that from a Cheech and Chong movie.
I don't. It's just something. It's the joke porn name my dad would always say when talking about porn parodies.
That's awesome.
He probably got it from that Cheech and Chong film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, getting back to that scene, I mean that's exactly it. You see Tess, she's kind of arriving for work, she's getting her makeup done, and Arash comes in and he's having a conversation with the makeup lady about oh, make her gorgeous, and she's like, oh, I will, and it's just this very it's like another day at the office kind of thing. And like I said, you're getting to this point where you're like, okay, I get it. She's an adult film star, she's gonna end up, shooting a scene or something like that, and you're just yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's quite a slow reveal. It's not too hidden early on, because you hear I think one of the first lines, going back to that opening shot of her plain yellow wall. It's a nice bookend, because that's part of her kind of microcosm where she lives that she's not allowed to change, because it's distinct from the other walls in the house. And you hear Melissa tell Tess that she can't change anything. It's the aspect of her living space she's not allowed to change, because it's also used for shoots. And there's a line early on when Melissa tells Tess, well, he shoots up there. And already, anybody, especially, even more so now than say when this came out, you start to go well, shoot what,
Yeah.
That can mean quite a few different things, but even thus far, the seeds are kind of there. You can kind of get a feel for what's happening.
Right.
And so I thought it was an interesting choice to kind of gradually get us there, and also kind of bold, honestly, to just show A, a porn shoot, but B, a very realistic feeling porn shoot, Yeah. So often, people still go for those kind of 90s joke versions of porn in movies and TV, where it's some stupid ass parody, of yeah, exactly. And it's just ridiculous costumes. And I'm like, has anybody watched porn since the late 80s that made this?
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's very stripped down.
Yeah.
It's just, there's him, there's her. Yeah. Once. Wow, didn't even mean to do that, boy.
Going into other shit.
All the wordplay is just leaving me, anyways. But yeah, and not since Boogie Nights had I seen something that did feel kind of true to form in terms of pornography. And it's pretty clever.
Not to stop.
Pretty clever.
Off, but don't spoil Boogie Nights, because that's another thing that I have not gotten around to.
Oh, my friend!
It's a great movie.
We got to do what needs to see. That's one of my top 3 of all time.
I love Boogie Nights.
Yeah. Anyways, but some super no problem. Some really clever shots in there too, the way they show and don't show. I'm guessing this wasn't quite an NC-17. I didn't even look. I don't know if it had a rating. It was a pretty small release.
I didn't see that either, actually.
More wordplay. That's my adult film, small release.
Amazing.
That one got by me.
Yeah. Anyways, now my radar is just too up for them. But yeah, some of the scenes that you wouldn't necessarily get in an R picture, it got really close to that line. A lot of the nudity and whatnot, and I thought that was pretty bold. And again, also involving real porn actors in this, I thought was a cool move, as opposed to, again, just trying to just kind of force regular actors through some sort of intimation of what you might see in actual adult film.
Yeah. Well, that's what it took me off guard, because they start getting into filming the scene, and you're just like, okay, and now it cuts away. That's what I'm expecting. And then the next thing you know, you're seeing shit, and you're just like, what the fuck's happening? And the body double that they got for Dree Hemingway, Zoe Voss, with the way that they cut it and stuff like that, and their builds and stuff like that are very similar. And so I'm sitting there just like, did they actually fuck Dree Hemingway on set? Did that really happen?
I didn't know till after reading it, honestly.
Yeah, I had to
reading about it after the fact.
I thought that it was pretty masterfully done in terms of, it didn't really occur to me right away that wasn't her. But yeah, it completely took me off guard. And I remember hearing in some interviews that I looked up on YouTube about some of the press they did for the movie, specifically I think at South by Southwest, where Sean Baker was saying that he knew that this film wasn't going to get a wide release because of that scene, but he felt like he had to keep the scene in there because there was something about the honesty of that, that he thought like truly told that story. And so I was trying to dig into that mentally and think about like, what is it that this movie benefited from by having that scene in there? And I think the only thing for me that I really kind of, there was a visceral reaction to it, because I felt like I had spent so much time with this character at that point that seeing her, you know, in that very intimate way, it felt wrong. Like I'm not supposed to see her this way because I'm seeing her have this relationship with Sadie. And so like that's my level of relationship with Dree. Like I'm not supposed to see her, you know, doing that. I'm not supposed to see that much of her body and all this other stuff. So there was something about it where it felt bad. Like I'm not supposed to see it. You know, it felt like voyeuristic and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
Yeah. So maybe I did get it.
Yeah, you spend all this time with this character.
Nailed
I
it.
think part of the point of this movie is you're humanizing sex workers. So you're like, oh, well, look, she has a life. She's going about all this and this and that. And also, she just gets fucking railed sometimes in front of a camera.
By Johnny Ramrod.
Yeah, Rambo large cock. That was awful.
He's French, though. It's Rambo Lecoq.
Yes, my neighbor, Rambo Lecoq. Oh, yeah, what do you do for a living? He's like, really?
It's like insurance. What do you
You
think,
don't know?
asshole?
Real estate agent.
It's like, wow, he's really abrasive about it, too.
You wouldn't buy a house from Rambo Lecoq?
First
Lecoq
strike
Realty.
Lecoq
First strike.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I think that.
So back to humanizing sex workers.
I think. Hold on. Need to get the giggles out.
Oh, man.
Need to get the testicles out. Hey, sorry, I don't need to do that on the. I'll save that for the Oscar show.
Get Amber back in here.
I think that
Get
that
Lecoq
hard
under control.
Somebody please tuck Iguana's balls away.
Do you see someone please hug? I love her.
It's a tuck.
Oh. I'll be doing that when I watch Leo. Anyway, I think, yeah, that real jarring scene, because I didn't know that this was a porn-oriented film until they started foreshadowing it. Like, the wall thing went right by me, because I was like, oh, she's a photographer or whatever the fuck. There's a million things you could do with... She could be a fucking blogger for all I know. Got a little...
You could have a Tumblr.
Start talking about current events and shit. But then, there was a scene later where she's talking to, I think, Sadie, and then behind her in the background, for most of the movie, you know, it's sort of blurry back there, but then you see in the shot that there's this big XXX billboard. And so I'm like, oh, well, it might be that. And then later, you know, another scene where she's out talking to, I think it's her talking to Sadie, and she's out at lunch or whatever, breakfast, and she's like sucking on a straw, and two dudes stop and they look at her and they fucking raise their eyebrows. And I was like, oh, I see what you're doing.
Well, and she gives whatever she's eating a quick lick too, and kind of looks at him and everything.
Yeah,
that was the key to me, because like I had a suspicion earlier, but then at that point, because it's not just that they look at her, they see her and they don't talk to her.
Yeah,
if it was Pop Singer,
like, dude.
Yeah, exactly. But they won't approach her either. It's not Pop Singer X or that person from that TV show I like. It's like, oh shit, that's her.
Yeah, like they clearly recognize her. Yeah.
But they're a little bit. They're keeping it a little bit on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, I was gonna say you don't want to like admit to that in public. Like, I saw you get fucked that one time. But then later, well, we cut to a scene at the porn convention, And by the
I
way,
love your current events blog. That's the code.
we cut to the porn convention, right? And
Yes.
the people there act and look exactly like I'd expect people who go to a porn convention to look and act like. And they're real meek and like, hey, can I get your picture? They're turtling.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up because that kind of montage of everybody that's coming up to test for her autograph, you see some and they're a little bit more approachable, and then there's that last guy. I think he's wearing like a Lakers hat, and he's like more like what you're talking about, what I picture, and he's just very like, oh yeah, you're so good, I love your stuff, kind of a thing. He's just got this like can barely speak. Like he's like just about to blush or something like that, and I'm like, yeah, that's a little bit more what I pictured. But who knows?
He may be there to murder her.
Maybe, yeah. No, for a hot sec, I'm like, in another movie, this would be the guy we'd be suspecting right now.
Absolutely.
Nah, there's one with Zana too, where he's like, "Can I take a picture with you?" And she's like, "Yeah, look at my ass. It looks nice in this."
Yeah, she leans into it big time.
Yeah. Well, she's trying a little too hard because she knows she's still grounded, and she's trying to still get back in because she's super entitled. Melissa sucks.
Yeah,
she has an addiction. It's established early on that she's low on funds. Mikey takes all her money for frivolous, random entrepreneurial bullshit that we'll find out later is the fucking stripper poles and a nicely remodeled living room. I will admit.
True. Without the stripper pole, it's a nice living room.
Yeah, I made a mental note. I was like, stripper pole aside, that money went a long way.
A lot of fucking mirrors, though.
I mean, yeah. And as it turns out, when she gets escorted away, and I'm not familiar with the porn industry, but I'm making an assumption here. She's told not to take other work, and then she ends up making a shit ton of money from doing privates. That's prostitution, right? She's fucking people for money.
I would assume so. I don't know that exact terminology, but that's what I assumed.
I didn't know if it was that or that she was filming some private videos, kind of like an OnlyFans thing before that was a thing. I'm not sure. Because Arash ends up saying something about like just a reminder that you know what the hell non-compete clause is, meaning she can't work for other companies or do private work.
Right.
Well, Melissa also tells Jane, like, I could hook you up with privates, go through this guy, it's safe, or something. And that sounds very pimpy to me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And Mikey gets pissed at her when he finds out that she's taking privates without having consulted her, because I think they're a couple, right?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I'm pretty sure.
But, it's sort of a weird situation to navigate because your career is fucking other people.
Yeah.
So, I assume she's whoring herself. Well,
I mean,
in the literal sense.
Manuel Ferreira, they were talking about it in, like I said, the South by Southwest interview. Dree was talking about how, in order to do this film, they were kind of in that world. They were surrounded by adult film, actors and actresses. They were in the studios. They were at the actual porn convention and all that kind of, like, they filmed at an actual convention and all this because they were trying to, and they were trying to be authentic. I'm not saying like the people that they filmed were real, but they were filming at an actual convention.
I was gonna say, that'd be a hell of a thing to mount, so to speak, for such a small budget. Yeah.
But she was talking about how, like, Manuel Ferreira couldn't have been a nicer guy, and you just learn more about these people. And she's like, Manuel has a wife and children at home, so when he's done at the office, when he's done shooting for the day, he goes home to his wife and kids, and his wife has this understanding that her husband's job and the life that he is providing, because I think they basically made a mention that, like, the wife doesn't work. Like, the life that he is providing for them, which seems to be doing pretty good, is all based on him going to work and being filmed having sex with other people. And there's just an understanding there. And I think that would be very difficult for most people, but I guess there's some people out there that can separate those things. And so
we're all selling a part of ourselves for our jobs. It's a matter of which part you're willing to sell. Honestly, I think it's still a damn shame that for as many other things as we'll put on camera or we'll pay like many dollars for, I mean, that anything that may fall under the kind of gray area of porn or sex work is still so shunned, you know?
Yeah.
Look at that slap fighting league that they started a while ago.
Oh, Jesus.
Tell me how that's any better than pornography.
Right. I mean, not for nothing, and I'm not saying that there's some, levels of it out there where it could potentially be dangerous for people being hurt. I don't know, but like, who's getting hurt in porn?
Well, here's to another point that I wanted to make. I mean, there are a lot of reports of, say, mental health and alcohol and drug abuse in the porn community. But again, when you when you work in what is such a shunned and shamed industry, what do you figure is going to come with that?
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are both wrestling fans. How great of health do you figure wrestlers today are in compared to, like, say, the 80s when they were still considered like a freak show?
Yeah.
Despite
look at their death rate.
Yeah, exactly. Despite selling out arenas across the country, around the world, as, again, how many downloads, how much recognition could just the two that we've mentioned in this film, Ferreira and Akira, could they have? And yet they can't show up at certain things, or they can't really tell people what they do.
Right.
Yeah, what do you
I think
do?
It's kind of bullshit.
I'm an actor.
Yeah,
I guess. I'm an entertainer.
Yeah.
I'm a people pleaser.
I want to talk to your therapist about that. That can go too far sometimes. It's very sweet of you, but yeah, thanks.
And also to your point, there's also a lot of a stigma around, abuse that happened in the home and stuff when people were younger and stuff that leads to them going into these careers in adult film. And I think a lot of that's been debunked as like that's something that was invented to kind of explain it, but that's not necessarily true.
I mean, they said the same thing about homosexuality for years and years and years. And some fucking assholes still do, so that's unsurprising.
Well, and I think it provides a convenient reason to not undertake what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Furthering the shame of the whole thing. And again, if I've heard a handful, I mean, not personally, but I've heard a handful of interviews and stories of people that worked in adult film that did unfortunately suffer those kinds of abuses early on, and what people do with that's again a huge gray area. But I always say, like, if we're going to separate this as, like, few other things we do nowadays, I mean, we're relatively a pretty liberal society, but to separate those people and what they do the way we still do, I mean, go down to any dive bar, see what people are doing with their trauma. You know what I mean? Yeah. We accept a whole lot of very self-abusive behavior. Just certain ones we're still not too cool with.
Well, for me personally, I'm not big into sex work, and that thing. That's not my thing. But I think that people need to recognize that at the end of the day, fucking nobody can afford to live, and people are people, and people are just trying to make money. So you can not like that all you want, but don't go out of your way to piss and shit all over people just trying to fucking make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
You can not like that from a distance, but then not, go out of your way to make people feel like shit for choosing to do it. Because some people are
absolutely,
modern day. Some people fucking end up making OnlyFans accounts as a last resort. So you could think one way about it, but to just see the humanistic point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I also wanted to bring up another thing, and it's kind of, it would be me forcefully kind of removing us from that topic, so feel free to jump back onto it. I just wanted to point out something before I forgot. The costuming, I thought was very interesting, specifically how they did it with Tess / Jane. I noticed that in the beginning of the film, or the first half of the film, or something like that, almost everything she wears is incredibly revealing. Very small shorts that are basically hanging off of her hips, and crop tops, and that are sleeveless. She was basically showing as much skin as humanly possible. And they live in California, where the weather is always wonderful. Yeah. But as the film goes on and her relationship with Sadie is developing and becoming stronger, and all that kind of stuff, she definitely kind of tones it down. Like when she appears at the bingo later on, because they go to bingo together a couple of times. Like, she's definitely more, like, she might still be wearing a pair of shorts, but they're not as salacious looking, and she'll have like a long sleeve shirt on top, and she's definitely being a little bit more modest and things. I just thought that kind of showed that progression of character of, the appropriateness of her kind of, she's leaning into this persona that she has in her industry in the beginning, but then later on, when she's developed this friendship with Sadie and when she's around her, she definitely dresses differently to kind of reflect that this is a different world that I'm in now, so I look different in this world.
Well, and parallel to that, though, as well, as she's kind of moved up, I believe it's implied that the scene with Ferreira is kind of a step up for her. She's kind of stepping up into the big leagues in some way, and she eventually, because of a lot of drama and bullshit at her first home, she moves into a new home of different adult film stars. And you see, even within the world, there is another level of maturity. As she's introduced to the house, there's very set rules. Everybody respects each other. If you're doing a webcam, let us know so we don't overlap. They've all got the Outlook calendar set up, and she says, label your shit in the fridge. I mean, I kind of appreciate that, as well as she's learning these things with Sadie as well. Like, there is another way to be mature while working in this industry.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a perfect segue into talking about the two big relationships in this film. One being Melissa and Jane, and the other being Jane and Sadie. You see, as Jane matures throughout the film, spending time with Sadie, her and Melissa start to be at odds. Melissa's dragging her down throughout the whole film, and eventually she's like, fuck it, and we get to our climax, no pun intended. But the relationship between Jane and Sadie itself is pretty interesting, because they go through this whole arc where she buys the. Well, it starts off a little confrontational because she's looking around, and the first thing she hears is a cranky old woman yelling, "No refunds." We find out later why there's a yard sale in the first place, and then she's talking about, what is this? It's a thermos. It'd be a nice vase, and she's like, "It's a thermos." She finds a bunch of money in it, goes to return it, or at least goes to talk to her, because we don't find out if she actually was going to or not. And Sadie's just being a dick. Like, get off my lawn.
Yep.
And I like that, and I'll praise it again, the realism in this film, because when she was trying to get close to Sadie, which presumably was like, okay, well, can you afford to live without this money? How are you doing? And ultimately, she keeps the money. Which again, in a situation where someone's placed in that, I can see that totally happening. You all of a sudden you come to this amount of money and you have that moral dilemma, but sometimes people differ on what they want to do, and I saw her character doing that as feeling very genuine. I didn't realize that that a lot of the dialogue was ad-libbed, but in retrospect I do, because she was in her house and she's asking for water, and she's like, all right, I guess. She gives it to the fucking Starlet, the dog, and she's like, you're letting the dog drink out of my glass? and you're drinking out of it?
I thought it was interesting that inevitably Jane ends up keeping or using all of the money as well, because it's funny how by the end of the film, like, you don't really demonize her for doing it. Even though I think the more natural reaction is to be angry with her for spending somebody else's money that isn't her own. But she also uses it for a pretty, wholesome thing at the end.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the interesting circuity of the whole thing of holding on to the money. Baker apparently was inspired that part by, I think it was his dad's friend. He found like 20 grand, and he actually went to find out what the legal ramifications were of just keeping it. And so that's part of what gave him the idea as to use this as kind of a catalyst for the story. Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a simpler version of this. There's also a much more hackneyed version of this where somehow Sadie finds out that she had her money towards the end, which, spoiler, Melissa takes it upon herself to inform Sadie of this.
Yeah.
And where they have, the typical, very typical of, say, like romantic comedies and whatnot, like,
yes,
pre third act, where they have to, like, oh, the secret's revealed, now we have to argue, and now we have to believe for like 15 minutes that they're not going to get together and bullshit. I love that this movie swings such a different way, because we see Sadie, she just kind of takes it in.
Yeah.
When Melissa is there just being a total bitch.
Yes.
and just trying to shit on her former friend, I guess, and Sadie's just kind of like, what a weird young woman, and just walks away. Yeah. And you see her start to unpack for a little bit, and then she kind of goes like, nah, fuck this, I'm actually going to go ahead with it,
Yeah.
And again, realizing, I think, what I was alluding to before, that if she had just given the money back, I mean, what story do you have? Yeah. As she learns over time to appreciate this woman, learns what's really important to her, learns a lot of what she's presenting that isn't necessarily true. Instead, they spend this money together, on what is something of a dream trip that, from all accounts, Sadie has kind of given up on, because it still takes quite a bit of prodding to even get her to go.
Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, she does spend it pretty frivolously too at times. Buying all the bingo sheets in order to get her to go on the trip. Just giving fucking... By the way, a little anecdote about that is I've been to bingo with my grandmother where we were in a similar situation where I had to manage 4 at once, and fuck that. If I 25 sounds like literal hell.
Dude, the timing of this was so wild. I went to bingo once when I was like 12, which I think was like the minimum age, to the Knights of Columbus with my mom way back in the day. I hadn't been in, like 25 years or some shit. And I watched this movie end of last week. Over the weekend, I go to visit a mutual friend of the Boone and I's. And me and him and his wife end up going out to fucking bingo.
That's amazing.
Yes, and our friend's wife, she is a pro, and she even said, like, when we got up towards the window, she's like, I'll order for you guys, okay? And so she got the friend and I, like, the kind of starter, and for him, because he'd been once before, the starter +1 pack, and she had like a fucking tablet that runs like 100 cards at once, in addition to her dozen cards in front of her. I was having trouble keeping up with 2 plus 3 on the fucking tablet, and then she was just all over the place.
That's awesome.
You win?
Yeah. She won one of the games, one of the lower ones.
Nice.
I got pretty close to winning 2 of the higher ones, and man, I could feel it. Like the adrenaline was going.
But
gotta chase that.
Yeah.
Papa's gonna put a down payment on a Subaru.
And I mean, and she tipped the delivery driver just with the whatever the fuck. We don't know how much, from what I recall, but he makes a note like, "This is a lot. Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah, fuck it."
Yeah, it's fine.
And but yeah, and I told you up front that I was gonna use this fucking term throughout the whole episode, but it just feels very genuine, the relationship, because Sadie's wondering, how the hell do I get this person out of my house through her body language? Especially because Jane keeps popping up everywhere she looks, offering her rides everywhere, and eventually we reach the tipping point where she just fucking maces her.
Oh my god, that also took me by surprise.
Oh man, that made me laugh.
I was not ready for that.
Yeah,
and then the conversation with...
it's too convenient. You keep popping up.
Yeah, the conversation with the cops afterwards too just got me.
Yeah, and as it turns out, she finds out that there's nothing malicious going on, and she apologizes without saying she's sorry.
Yeah.
Which I think is an important note because, given the circumstances, I mean, what else are you to assume?
Yeah.
You're an old woman with someone who just keeps trying to get you in their fucking car all the time.
Yeah. Interesting too, because the person in this two-person equation that's not the adult film worker is the one that's afraid of being exploited.
Yeah.
For
It
what we
already
don't
feels
even
like
know.
she has been by like the insurance company and stuff, for example.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's established that she's well off as far as financially. She says she has more money than she could ever spend, which I do think plays a factor in Jane deciding to not just outright give it to her, but then give it to her in the form of an experience and friendship, because she still gives her something. And it's another reason why I think we don't villainize her is because what she gave back to Sadie is more meaningful than just the outright money.
I think she also comes from a place where she knows that Sadie would never spend the money to take the trip herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that. It's the thing that she would never spend, if were the money still hers.
Yeah.
And we also, I mean, unless either of you have like an outright what exactly happened, we find out at the end of the film, to jump ahead a little bit, that Sadie says earlier in the film that she doesn't have a daughter. We find out later that she did, that she had passed away. And an important thing of note is the film is called Starlet, which is the name of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and then it also refers to her, in her burgeoning career, I guess.
Well, I sort of took that as, because that's like that's when everything hits the fan, when she trusts her enough to, hey, watch my dog, and then she goes through loss again. I mean, this is my interpretation. She'd already lost her daughter. She finally builds a relationship, sort of a mother-daughter type relationship, with another person, and she, because of her age, she struggles to, she spends the day looking for the damn dog, which probably sucked being 80 years old.
Yeah.
And she was like, I can't do this. And everything sort of fizzles out, because she's like, I don't want you around me anymore, this and this and that. And then we have to get to the point where she's like, no, you know what? You want this more than anything in the world, so I'm going to give it to you whether you like it or not.
Yep.
I think that was like the key important moment in the film, if I had to narrow it down to... If I really had to file that shit down to one moment.
I'm with you. That was probably one of the most emotional scenes in the movie for me. It reminded me a lot of a scene in a movie called Magnolia, where a person loses a personal object, I guess. I mean, a dog's not an object, but in this case, it's an inanimate object. And just that kind of feeling of desperation. It's the one thing you're supposed to hold on to, and you have utterly lost it. And it's so real to me, and it just like breaks my heart and gave me so much anxiety personally. I think for anybody who's potentially lost or broken a personal something very important to somebody who's very important to you, that little feeling of like, oh God, if I don't get this back or if I don't fix this, that's a very tough half hour to several hours.
Yeah.
And another one of the themes in this film is surrogacy, and this familial unit that they've kind of built with one another, and it's just the two of them. But Sadie lost her family long ago, and we hadn't even been given the reveal yet that it was truly a family. We just thought that she had lost her husband, but it turns out that she lost her husband and her daughter. And then, of course, we also know that Jane is somewhat estranged from her family, like when she has the one phone conversation with her mother and says, you should come out and, see the place and see this and see that, and her mom refuses to go. And so Sadie has to build this surrogate, I'm sorry, not Sadie, but Tess or Jane has to build this surrogate family of her own. And it starts with Mikey and Melissa, but it ends up, diverting away from that and more turning to Sadie for that, like you said, kind of a motherly figure, or a grandmotherly figure, even with their age difference. And I'm sure there was this level, as you're kind of pertaining to, like you're getting at, Inky, is I've lost this thing that is so precious to this person that I care about very much, that I never knew I was going to care about somebody like this again. And I feel like I failed them, and I don't feel like I can face them after this level of a failure. And that's why I'm just going to put my distance back in there and guard myself from that kind of hurt ever again. And that's where you kind of see that. You kind of get that rom-com breakup between the two of them without the reveal of the money, because it just kind of comes from that, and then Jane basically doesn't take no for an answer.
Well, yeah, and the crisis was ultimately averted. That's the other weird thing, It's not that she actually did it, and then Tess is blaming her for it or some, usual hackneyed bullshit. It's just the stress of that moment herself, and she had just started to open up,
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Well, nope, maybe better keep that door closed,"
Yep.
The comparison I kept reading about with this relationship, and I picked up on a little bit of as well, was Harold and Maude.
They kept bringing that up.
And to me though, it's funny because Sadie is quite different from Maude, and I kind of like this version of it. In this case, it's kind of the younger trying to look a little bit into, in some ways, kind of shepherd the older person here. And I think Sadie as well. I was told. Sean Baker called me up last night. But no.
He said, Inky, here it is.
That's how he has me in his phone. No, Baker and Dree Hemingway as well both mentioned that Sadie, 2 seconds. Basedka Johnson is quite different from Sadie herself. She's much more Maude-like. Actually, she's just, a person everybody loves to be around. So it was quite a performance, actually, to play Sadie for her.
Yeah. And they had mentioned, she would, because he would very much tell them to ad-lib what they were doing. And they would cut on a take, and he would say, all right, Basedka, now on the next one, I want you to be 35% meaner. And Basetka's like, I can't be mean to Dree. I love Dree.
Yeah.
It's just so wholesome. What a great outlook. And must have been an awesome, on-set chemistry, relationship that they had. So, I don't know. I'm very taken by Basedka Johnson's story. And it makes me sad that she got to do this, and then that was it. I mean, she really reminds me of Ellen Burstyn. And she could have been like that. That could have been her career. She could have been another Ellen Burstyn, but obviously that didn't happen for her.
Well, and honestly, if Baker and company wouldn't have found her, she may have never had her chance to be an actress.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate because I think she did a bang up job in this one, and and to learn that she passed away shortly after it was released, it's shit, But I'm glad that she got to live that dream. Not unlike, Sadie herself. I mean, we are to presume that they do go on this trip to Paris, and, she always wanted to be an actress, and she made it, so.
Yeah. Rewind just a touch. One more kind of covert scene where I thought it was going one way and turned out the other. When we see Melissa get her car back after discovering the money, you really assume there for a sec, oh shit, she went and spent the money, which again would have been the more,
I have no doubt,
would have been the usual way to go with this kind of story. And then we find out after, though, she's been doing privates, which is its own thing. It causes a stress on the other relationship that we see her in. And what Melissa actually was waiting to see what Tess would do with this, was testing her. And then eventually we get the blow up on that end again. Instead of the relationship we're seeing build between Tess and Sadie, it's this withering one we see between Tess and Melissa that has that big kind of blow up after she realizes that she's going to spend it on the person whose money it was in the fucking first place.
Yeah. Man, that is my huge takeaway, that now that you've brought it up multiple times, as I'm listening to you, saying your pieces about the film, a huge takeaway from Sean Baker's work on this film at least, and we'll see how it goes as we continue to go through his stuff, but like he is like a master at subverting what you expect to happen.
Yeah.
And then that's not at all what it's about. And it's like, oh shit. Like, yeah, because I assumed she took the money. And then, of course, we get the reveal later on that she had been doing side work, which she wasn't supposed to be doing.
Yeah, but see, he sidesteps, but it's still very much within the lane. And I love that, too. That's something I love about like this kind of filmmaking in general, where you can, as you put it, subvert my expectations without going fully out the back door, you know?
Yeah. There's another good wordplay in there.
Oops, yeah. We were due. It was a good 20 minutes since the last double entendre. Unless I missed some in there.
But no, I mean, I don't know. If you guys have something else, please throw it out there. I'm kind of giving this as another opportunity to kind of drop something that I haven't thought about, but I've kind of tossed it all out there.
So, do you guys have any opinions on? Because I think that once Sadie was told, like, "Hey, Jane was using your money that she found in your shit," she believed her. She was like, "Oh, yeah." But I think that that's another thing that's open to interpretation. What I got from that was she doesn't care because she ended up with this like really positive relationship with this other person after being, you know, essentially a shut-in, divorcee, spending all your time alone. She was like, "Well, I gained this great friendship, which is, you know, I have a daughter figure in my life again." Just to bring that back up, I think she lets it go because she doesn't tell her that she knows. I think she lets it go because she was like, "Well, shit worked out in the end. I got something that's of higher value than the money would have been. And I got the fucking trip I wanted to go in the first place that I wouldn't have went on."
When I think that Jane gives Sadie this gift with her own money, but like Jane gives Sadie, she doesn't just give her the trip, she gives her the courage to go on the trip, which is, I think, one of the big things. And then I feel like Sadie reciprocates that by giving Jane vulnerability, by taking her to the cemetery and showing her, like, go out there and look at the grave plot, and showing her, like, this was my family. I did have a kid that I lost, and this is some stuff that I was keeping because I didn't want to open up to you. And so the gift that she was giving back was like, let me open up to you and show you the side of me that I was keeping from you before.
Yeah. Such a great
nice
film.
Subtle thing too. Yeah. Nice subtle way to do that at the end there, instead of just actually having a full-on expositional conversation about her past.
By the way.
Yeah.
Oh, and another thing, Jane never mentions that she's a porn star.
Like, she doesn't audibly say it?
Yeah. I mean, to Sadie.
Oh, to Sadie, yeah, they never talk about
it. Sadie doesn't know what the fuck she does.
Yeah.
Funny little bit, too, there when they're getting ready to pack for Paris. Tess tells, or Jane tells Sadie, she's like, "I hear the Frenchmen can be quite the lovers."
Yeah.
Having just shot her first scene with a Frenchman, I thought that was kind of a nice little touch.
Yeah. It was like, hey-o. Yeah, I mean, I really like the movie, and it's funny because as we're having this discussion on the show today about it, I like it even more. Like, the more that we're kind of like unpacking it and stuff like that, it's helping me appreciate the shit that maybe I wasn't completely invested in the moment when I was watching it. And so it just kind of highlights some of the brilliance of it even more. So like I'm all in. I think that it was great. I'm really excited to continue on.
That's the point of the show, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day.
Well, I'll say this, having seen, now this is the fourth Sean Baker film I see, I liked it quite a bit, as I hope people could tell from this episode. It's probably it's third or fourth, though, of the four.
Wow.
So we've got plenty of places to go, gentlemen. And in advance, I want to say thank you both for taking this kind of journey for this, taking this kind of dive into something that's maybe not right up the usual alleys.
There you got another one there.
Yay!
Yeah, I'm super excited to check out his body of work. I'm much like Garland. Well, unlike Garland, I haven't seen any of his stuff. Because Garland, I at least saw Men Up Front, which I know you guys didn't care for, but I did. So this is a whole new thing.
You got the name wrong, by the way.
Men.
Men.
You know, I didn't want to cut you off earlier, but you did that up front when you started talking about. You said the relationship between these two women.
These women. If we're to believe.
Fixing their tits. And all the other shit these women do.
Painting fucking polka dots on their walls.
Hiding money from each other. Candling the pole.
Women.
Losing chihuahuas.
Did you say candy ass? I didn't hear that.
Catty ass.
Okay. I thought you just went full on like rock there. These candy ass women.
Rudy Poo.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if her name's Dree or Tess or Jane.
Oh man. But no, and going back to, you know, I appreciate, you know, Inky, you bringing this up as just offhandedly. You didn't even mention it as an arc or anything like that. You just mentioned his name. And then
I just wanted you guys to see Tangerine. I thought that was a needs to see. And then y'all were like, yeah, let's do a full arc. And I was like, okay, fuck.
I mean, it was fucking serendipity. We were chatting about putting together a list of appropriately holiday-themed films for December. And I said, I want one of those movies in December to be part of our arc, which we hadn't decided upon yet. And then Inky brings up this Sean Baker thing, and so we're digging into his filmography. Turns out Tangerine takes place on Christmas Eve. It's a fucking Christmas movie then, man. I was like, we're going to just stick that one in December, and we'll do a Sean Baker arc. And it just it worked out really well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the only little downside is we're gonna do one more film with takeout, but it's not as readily available as the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So later down the line, if it becomes more readily available, we can just do a one-off of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, I'm down.
Have you seen Takeout, Inky?
I have not. No, it's I found the same thing where it's not available anywhere, at least online.
Yeah. I think we just about wrapped up fuck movies did we just watch? Starlet.
Yeah.
What was it again?
Yeah, I feel like it's a very good entry point for this arc from a director whose work that I had never seen before, and now I'm very much excited to dig into some more of it and then anticipate his new stuff that comes out, because I think he has a film called Honora that's in post-production right now. So I'm, it's just another one to kind of add to the repertoire of directors that I pay attention to. And so very excited to keep going down this rabbit hole with you guys. And I know that next week we're going to record another VVV, even though we just did one not that long ago for TMNT, but we're doing it because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we'll get back in with Mr. Baker in early December with, I think Tangerine is the next one that we're doing, isn't it? Or is there one after the VVV?
Oh,
I'm forgetting.
Yeah, if we're going chronologically, the next one would be Tangerine. I don't know exactly where it is.
I know we had to jump out of chronology in order to fit Tangerine in. Tangerine. I was reading something that wasn't Tambourine, but I was clearly still
That's
putting...
the next VVV. Tangerine versus Tambourine.
Yeah, so Sean Baker arc episode 2 will be in early December, and that is Tangerine. So, or Tambourine.
And
Tune
then,
in to find out which one.
and we take a bit of a break for the Christmas season too.
Yeah, we're going to take a break from the Sean Baker arc for a little bit and just do a bunch of Christmas movies or Christmas adjacent.
Iguana Lover 23 for quite a few months.
We'll rename you something just in December, like whatever the funniest reindeer name is. We'll give you that one.
Good news, though. If we ever need another international film, there is a film that translates to tambourine that is originally called Dair Zangi out of Iran. So there we go.
I'll take it.
Our first Iranian film on the pod.
There you go.
There it is.
For one of our international films could be Milo and Otis. No, wait, hold on. A VVV. It's Milo and Otis versus Cannibal Holocaust.
Technically, 2 international films. There we go.
Oh, very nice. Well, Iguana Lover 23 and Inky, I just want to... Yeah, I know, it's so fucking unnatural. But I just want to, again, thank you all for spending time with me tonight chatting about this film. I really liked it. Very excited, as we've already said, to kind of dig in and see what's next with Sean Baker and the other things that we're going to be covering. So with that in mind, folks, I think we're going to wrap it up for this week. Please reach out to us and give us your feedback, give us your suggestions, ask whatever questions you may want to ask, recommend films. We're into all that kind of stuff. You can find us at Screen Sermon on X. You can also just drop comments down into YouTube, or you could send us an email at screensermonpod@gmail.com, whichever one takes your fancy. We very much would appreciate any kind of liking and subscribing you would do on YouTube, so please do that. Help support the channel and support Tubi, man. Like, we can't say that enough. Tubi fucking rocks. So, utilize Tubi. It's out there. It's free. You log in with your Google account and it's great, with that in mind, thanks a bunch for being with me today, Iguana Lover.
Thank you for having me. Watch House and watch Leo.
I'll do neither of those things. Inky, thanks a bunch, not only for being on today with me and kind of opening up some things about this movie that I wasn't even thinking about, but also just introducing me to the Sean Baker body of work in general.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for taking the dive, and go watch Tambourine.
To all our Iranian fans out there, we're going to be taking a look at the Tambourine down the road somewhere.
Bated breath.
All right, folks, have a great week.